Colin and Kieran Brown breed and raise Italian Piedmontese cross cattle for their paddock-to-plate operation that delivers meat directly to consumers. About 10 years ago, Colin travelled to Italy and was impressed by the breed. He hasn't always been in the meat industry.
I had a PC business that was incredibly successful for over 25 years. Back in 2003, I think I was a technology finalist in the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. This basically is my second life, and it's a life that I just love it so much. I just wish I'd done it 20 years ago. Back in our first year of entry into the Stake of Origin competition, we won the Grand Champion Brand Award, which we were absolutely thrilled with. We felt a little bit like charlatans coming in and taking it in the first year. The second year, we came third in the Best of Crossbred, and all the animals that we submitted were significantly better than the average so far as the tenderness was concerned. So we were pretty thrilled about it. We started off with a herd of Simmental cows, and as we started to sell our meat directly, we started to research to find out what is the greatest eating experience that anyone could have with a steak. And we came across a breed called Piedmontese from Italy, which has a unique mutation which makes their meat very tender and very healthy. It has less cholesterol than fish. It's highest in essential fatty acids, omega-3s, omega-6s. So we started from there to do some crossbreeding with Piedmontese, but we found that the cross still lacked a little bit of fat. We just need a little bit extra fat. What we want our animals to do is not to be too fat, but to still grade prime if we can. So we then moved to, we realised that it's got to be a British breed, and we decided on Angus as being the breed because that's where most of the genetic improvement's coming from. So we're now developing strongly a herd of Angus cows, which a Piedmontese bull will go over. We've only got 75 acres, so we're struggling all the time for it to be a commercial operation. As I've become more and more interested in the breeding side of things, we've changed what we're doing. We used to have around about 50 cows and raise 50 odd animals for slaughter, which would be basically one a week or two every fortnight. But now we're moving our cow herd up to 100, and we're going to have the young animals after weaning, having them grown elsewhere. We see that as being the long-term sort of goal for us from an economic perspective. We feel confident that the public want to deal, they want to buy their meat directly from the farm and to know that it's been ethically raised and looked after, and that's certainly something that we do very well. I'm very passionate now about growing great cattle. It's my desire to grow the best cattle in the world. I'm not there yet, I'm not there by a long stretch. But we have to think like the All Blacks. We have to think about doing things really well. And I think that's a really good analogy of the All Blacks, because they work incredibly hard in a number of areas to make sure that they are world beaters. And obviously one of the big things is selection. You've got to make sure that you select the right players for the team. And it's the same on your team on the farm. You've got to make sure that your selection process for future replacements is going to be as good as you can get. As you can see, we're a little bit like the United Nations. I've got quite a few animals that we've had historically, but they're still a valuable part of what we're doing. They're all surrogate mothers, and they're holding high quality Angus embryos. Almost exclusively they've been either AI'd or ET'd. We do quite a lot of ET work. If you're going to improve your herd, one way to improve it is by using a high quality bull, and semen's readily available to use high quality bulls. It's very hard to get high quality females. So in our opinion, what we've got to do is to only breed our replacements from the highest quality girls that we've got here. So that's what we do. We flush those girls, we give them fertility drugs. It's totally non-invasive. They'll supply 8 or 10 embryos in one flush, as against taking 8 years to produce 8 embryos traditionally. And they get inserted into the lower quality cows. And some of them that we've got here are dairy cross that have actually got extra milk, that they can really raise a calf very well. We want cows that are going to throw animals that have got great meat. So part of that is understanding the EBVs of the animal, the breeding values. We want to have as much marbling as we can get in the carcass, so our breeding program is working on making sure that any bulls that we put across or that we AI or ET are very high marbling bulls. But we also have to look at making sure that the carcass quality is as perfect as it can be within the marbling parameters. We'll program our surrogate mothers to have an implant, and we program at the same time as the donor cow so that they cycle and do their process all together. We obviously select the semen that we're going to use over the cow. We put it through a week of fertility drugs, and at the end of that week we then inseminate it maybe 3 times, and at the same time the surrogate mothers have also cycled at that same time. We then put them away and bring them back a week later, and at that stage the embryos in the donor cow are a week old, and all the cows that have cycled the surrogates are also a week old. We flush the embryos out of the donor cow, implant them into what looks just like an AI patet but a little bit longer, and that goes into the donor cow.
So I can just feel her ovaries. That one feels normal. The left one, normal.
The cost to do ET is not expensive. An animal that grows quicker, better, faster, when it's killed is going to be worth more than the $300 that I've invested. So you can get it back in one cycle. Take this girl. Just hold the other ones back, Kieran. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Good, babes. There you go. Good. We've drafted off a couple of our Angus to go off to Ruakura to be killed. It's the part that I hate the most, but we always know that that's where they're going to be going. So the truck will pick them up shortly and they'll go off to Ruakura. They'll be killed at Ruakura. They'll come back about 4 or 5 days later as a chilled carcass to Matamata Butchery, and they'll sit in their chillers for another 10 days, ready to be cut up. The biggest thing which affects the quality of the meat is the cattle being stressed. It brings the pH level up, and the higher the pH, the tougher the meat is. So we work really hard not to stress any of our animals. They always go off in twos so that they're there with their mate. They don't get bullied when they're in the pens there. We don't have any dogs on the place. We want to make sure that their life here is as good as it can be, and that stress level is as low as it can be. This is how one of our packs gets received by a customer. Comes with a little security tag to make sure that nothing gets pilfered on the way to them. Obviously comes with a chiller pad. This is a 5 kg pack. We have 5 kg, 10 kg, 20 kg, etc. But they're basically made up in 5 kg lots. You look at a 500 kg animal, will be around about 160 kgs of meat. So within an animal we've got multiples of 5 kg. Pretty much by the time we've finished and divided it all up, there's very little left over.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.